Hey guys and girls, so welcome to the drum groove part of this whole melodic house session that we're making here. Really looking forward to this one. The drums are super important, of course, in dance music because they just give the whole groove and the whole energy to the tracks. So I think I want to make a short comparison to, get clear what's the difference between the genres that we're in. And if we're speaking of melodic house, I think it's important to have in mind that we're speaking of the same people, that we're meaning the same thing, but because those are not fixed terms, okay? So if I'm speaking from about melodic house, I'm speaking about people like Ben Böhmer, Tinlicker, Lane 8, Massenet, Solanka, and all those people that we're recreating here and that we're having a look at here. I'm not so much speaking about, even though I have this example of Tim Green, but I'm not speaking of organic house artists like Volincentier, Tim Green, Sébastien Léger. I mean, he's kind of his own genre, funky house or something like that. But to make a distinction, I just want to emphasize we're going to have more a look at those bigger melodic house artists. And when I was analyzing their drum game, I was a little bit surprised because I had the feeling it's not that complex, for example, as if you listen to Volincentier or those Makebo, Amonita, those people from Shanti Moscow Radio and also All Day I Dream. So the main difference for me was it's the drums are actually a little bit rougher, they are a little bit raw, so they're pretty standard claps, 808-ish claps, and oftentimes you have those finger snaps. You have kind of knocking kicks. This also depends on the artist. For example, Ben has not that much of a knocking kick, but if you listen to Solanka, his kick is really it's cutting through the mix. So also in our melodic house, we have differences, of course, from artist to artist. But I just want to show you a little bit how we can pick the best sound for our drums. And this is what we're going to do here in this whole course section. And we are going to work with the examples that I show you in the melody. And we're going to make all those drum examples with a backing track to them, because I think it's just cooler if you have some melodic and harmonic material that is going on. And that's the material that we're working on here in this course as well. So this is the Ben Böhmer triplet example, the Tim Green Tears example, and the two Solanka tracks that I showed you in the melody section. So I will try to get also drum-wise as close to the original as possible, or just imitate those styles of the people. So Ben Böhmer, of course, we will do this triplet feel because the whole track is in triplets, and with Tim Green we're going to try a little bit to get it more in this organic housey, melodic house, organic house direction, and with Solanka we're just trying to do pretty cool, a little bit more knocky melodic house grooves. So without further talking, let's just have a look at the basic ingredients of melodic house drums. Melodic house drums, of course, they also consist in general, a lot of tracks are just made with a kick, a hi-hat, a clap, and then there's something going on like a 16th pattern of hi-hats. So there are not that much shakers, and I haven't heard, for example, bongos or congas that much in the tracks I analyzed. But of course there are melodic house tracks, and that's why I'm just clarifying this, that have bongo, conga, and all more those Afro drum elements in them. But I just want to make this point clear that it's very important which sounds you pick and you implement into your music, because music is stereotypes, So you hear a conga or a bongo or a djembe, and then you will instantly put the track more in an organic Afro house direction. Whether if you hear a super compressed kick, you will think more of EDM-ish style production. For example, we were running our own label, and we had this guy sending us demos, and it was organic house, but it was funny because he was American, and I had the feeling that his production style, he was coming from an EDM-ish style of producing. So he really, he sucked everything out of the sounds, and everything was super punchy, but it was a little bit too punchy for melodic house. So it was a funny, super knocky kick with a lot of high end. Yeah, and he made kind of his own genre mix out of that. So this is something pretty cool, and to keep in mind that certain elements provoke certain emotions and also certain thought patterns in people. Okay, and this is something we can use to our advantage. This is nothing that is bad or something. So basic elements: kick, clap snare with the sound picking wise, we're looking for something in the direction of 808-ish kicks, for example. Not the distorted ones, but just the very like more soft ones if we're making this like more Ben Böhmer style drums. And if you, like for example, we wouldn't use like super distorted like Tech House 909 kick drums. This is just not fitting the style of the melodic house production. But as I said, break the rules, you know, you can also do a nice crossover between like tech housey low end and a super melodic high end melody stuff. So this is something to keep in mind as well. Alright, I will be using just the samples from PML obviously, and I think they have a great collection out of different like sample packs, and we're just going to scroll through a couple of sounds and then we will have a listen and then we will build up those individual grooves. And I will also show you later on how you can make like your own groove a little bit by like dragging and pulling some notes to the left and to the right, which is something that gets done a lot in this like more chunky melodic house music. Alright, so without further talking, let's go and start with the example of Ben Böhmer, Breathing, with the track he made together with Malou and Niels Hoffmann. It's such a banger, really, really great track. So let's just delete those markers real quick, we don't need them anymore. And let's have a listen just to the background instrumental here. Alright, so as I said, this track was written in triplets, which I think is a pretty interesting thing we can do. So we will just create a MIDI track here and let's just call this kick. So with triplets, the funny thing is the kick is on the same position whether you have a triplet grid or a 16, like a straight 16th or 8 grid. So there's nothing that changes with our kick. So when we're starting now with choosing our kick sample, we don't have to necessarily watch out that we're doing something wrong because the kick will be in the same position. Okay, cool. So let's just create a new MIDI clip here by hitting Shift Command and M, and we can turn off the scale function here. I think it shouldn't be turned on in your DAW at the moment. And let me just show you where you can enable the triplet grid. It's if you right click here into your MIDI piano roll section, there is this drop down menu which is called triplet grid. You just click it and then you see that those divisions here, they change, and now we have a 16th triplet grid here. And for our kick it's very basic, we just pick our first 16th note of every quarter. So this is a quarter here, this is the next quarter, and so on and so forth. So we can just loop this section and now we have our basic kick rhythm here. It's just playing on every quarter. Cool. So let's go and find a kick that fits this style. What we are searching for is something, as I said, into the direction of an 808. So something that is kind of soft, but it has a nice click in there, not too much distortion, not crazy layered with some like high-end information, no shaker on top, just a very clean kick. Alright, so let's go into our sample packs. So I've got like this everything bundle collection, and I really like the kicks and the samples from the Deep Premium Volume 6, and I'm using them a lot, especially for example in my live set. Sorry if I'm looking down, sometimes it's just I have to watch if my camera is still recording. Cool, so now we have our one shots here, and just let's head over here to our kick section, and now we can have a listen. This one is very clean. This one, I don't know if I would choose this one. It has this like high-end information inside. For example, this would be a lot too distorted. But let's just try them out in context. So let's just pick this very clean kick here, double click. And I like to put my kicks on one-shot mode, so the ADSR down here, it's not affecting the length of my kick. If you put it just to one shot, it will play the whole kick sample. And then you can, of course, if you use this fade function here and you drag this marker here, you can shorten it up as short as you want. But I think your kicks shouldn't exceed like 250 milliseconds. So everything below that is fine, but above 250 milliseconds for like melodic house productions, as a rule of thumb, at this point here, shouldn't be that long, because if you're listening to it in a big club, it will get like super reverberized because the venue is big. Even if you listen to it in your, like not in your studio anymore, in headphones or somewhere like in a car or something. But especially in the clubs, it's a big problem if the kick is too long. So keep that in mind. Alright, so let's just drag the volume of our kick down a little bit. Okay, and now let's just use the switch function here. So with our arrow keys, we can switch through the different kicks, and with our enter key, we can just choose a different kick sample and we'll load directly into our sampler. And this way we can hear pretty nicely which kick will sound good or which kick will sound a little bit too far out. So let's just switch through those kicks here. I'll just make it a little bit louder. Maybe we just deactivate the lead so we can concentrate more on our kick. This one sounds pretty good. It's also okay. I don't know if I like the high end. This is super clean. For example, this one is just, it's a cool kick, but it's too aggressive for our style. This one works well. This one is, you know, it's more hard techno-ish. You know, you need a lot of other distorted elements to make this kick fit. But most of the kicks, they fit it here, so I think we can just leave it like this. That's actually pretty cool. So we are not exceeding 200 milliseconds here. As you can see down here, there's this timing lineal where you can just see how long your kick is. Alright, so I think this could work out as a kick at this point. And I like to, like in the beginning of my production process, I like to go through those steps of finding samples kind of a little bit more quicker, and then of course we can come back to find new samples or replace those samples all of the time in our production process. So this is something I do all of the time. It's like I produce something, and then in the end of the process I'm realizing, okay, this kick, now that I've like mixed it all, it's not coming through. I put hours on EQs and all that stuff, but it's just not working out. Well, then maybe it's time to find a new kick or a new clap or whatever. Alright, so let's continue by finding those like triplet hi-hats that are really important in the track of Ben Böhmer. And for that we will just create a new MIDI track here. So we can already group this stuff. Let's call it drums for Ben. And we call this hi-hat here. So there is this like triplet, like ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 hi-hat going on, which is making a pretty cool groove in his track. And it's a super clean, pretty short hi-hat. And we'll just drag this MIDI clip down here. Just the easiest way just to create new MIDI clips that have already some note information inside of them. And now it gets important that we right-click and we change our grid to 8th note triplets here, okay? So now, as you can see, our quarter note, it's divided by 3, and now we can just start dialing in our triplet notes here. So let's just pick those first 3 and duplicate them over. Alright, so I would say let's go and find a cool sample for this hat. So let's close down the kick, drop down menu here and open up the hats. And now let's just... Okay, cool. So what we're searching for is nothing that is opened, okay? We just want a very short, like... This is even too long. I cannot make it like more like this. I cannot even make it properly with my mouth. So something like this open hat here would be too much. This is too acoustic for what we're searching for. Too aggressive. I mean, of course, we can always like take a hi-hat and then just chop it, use the ADSR to make it short and all that stuff. But I like to go into the right direction already by picking the sample and then tweaking it. This is too like harsh, too grainy. I want something very like simple. Too tech housey. There's like this tonal information there. This could work out, maybe like the last part, but there's also resonance in it. Super tech housey. Okay, we're not searching for an open hat. Okay, maybe we just go with this one we had a moment ago. Have to find it again. Okay, let's try this one. Let's just double click here. We'll insert it here right away. Let's go to one-shot mode and then we'll just cut off the first like couple of milliseconds here. It's around 20 milliseconds that we've cut it off here. Now let's have a listen. Okay, that sounds pretty good already. I think that it's still a little bit too long. And what I like about this one-shot mode is that you can like use this fade and this marker function. And by the way, if you see that if you drag it, nothing is happening and now it's jumping somewhere. And this is because snap is enabled. So you can also like make it pretty smooth when you disable the snap function down here. All right, so now we can just shorten it up the way we want, and we can even adjust the fade out. What would be pretty cool if would be if we could like adjust this curve here exponential. But maybe Ableton can do that for us in the future. All right, cool. So let's have a listen, and then we'll just reduce our length. So now it sounds a little bit like, if you make it too short, it will sound a little bit mechanic, because this tail here, it's really important for the listener, because it's just giving this like releasing time to the sample or to the sound. And this is something I talk about a lot, because if you have a sound that is just like that, it's super unnatural, you know. And I mean in styles, for example, like trap or something, you want that unnatural, like mechanical style, and also in some other genres. But I think it's pretty cool if you just leave a little bit of that release tail. It just makes the sound more organic. Alright, so we can increase the volume here a little bit. So I would just show you like how you can mix drums properly. So if you put an utility on here and you just increase the volume like a lot, you know, you will hear that it's way too loud, okay? Now it's so much in your face. Now we cannot hear it anymore, or barely. That's way too quiet, of course. If you just want it in the background, this is your decision, you can mix it like this. This is actually pretty loud. I'm just doing this here because I cannot over exaggerate it in this tab here, because I'm already at plus 6 dB. This is too loud. You have to listen, when you're mixing, you have to listen to the context, like the kick. Can you still hear the kick, or is the hi-hat so loud that it's just like taking away all the attention from the other elements? So I think something like this works out pretty well. Alright, so what can we add to make this head a little bit more interesting? We can do a lot of stuff. I would suggest you to use maybe like a little bit of auto pan here. You don't have to sync this to, you can sync it here by clicking on this note button, and now it's synced to 16th notes. But I think it's also pretty cool to see if you have something, it's just, you know, like the panning, this is not so important if it's synchronized to your master tempo. So I like to leave it at hertz. And now we just get a little bit of a more stereo feel here. Let's just mix it a little bit louder so you can hear it more clearly. Alright, so another thing that I've seen a lot in like tutorials is people are using this erosion effect to give their drums a little bit more mid-range information. We will see if this is working on this hi-hat. We'll just try it, but it will for sure work on our drums that we're creating later with Tim Green. Okay, so to do that, I will just create a return channel by right-clicking here in this gray area and then insert return track. So now we have a new return channel here. And now you just want to type in wide and go to the erosion tab, and there's this preset called wide and dirty, which is actually pretty cool. And when we are here, this moment, let's just use an EQ8 later on so we can adjust those frequencies a little bit. Alright, so let's solo the hi-hat for a moment and send all like 100% into this wide and dirty preset. And I will deactivate the return now. Super thin. Also okay, you know, we don't need it to be, I'm over exaggerating here now. We don't need it to be that fat. So now we have like more mid-range and even like low end, as you can see here. So this is why I inserted the EQ here, because we know we can get rid of those really low frequencies. So now let's drag this down again, and let's just increase the level of the send until we get a little bit more of a thicker hi-hat there. Now it's already getting thicker. I think around -12 is great. Cool. Alright, so this was like, those can be like our first very basic like drum groove elements. Alright, and now we can continue with adding a clap to our drum groove. Okay, so let's create a new MIDI channel, hitting Shift, Command and T. Let's call this clap by renaming it with Command and R. And now we can go back to our sample pack here, which is here and there. Okay, cool. So now we're back in our Deep Premium Volume 6 sample pack, and as I told you, we need something that is more like kind of like a snap either, or something that is a pretty like standard white noisy clap. So we don't need like a big muddy snare here, we don't need like a super organic snare, organic layered clap here, because this is like more organic house. So if we want to produce melodic house, we would watch out for a clap like that. Cool, so let's go to our clap section here and let's just have a listen to the different claps, and then we can decide which one we'll pick. Alright. Those claps are pretty cool, but they're very organic. They're layered, they're pretty stereo, so not the claps that we're searching for at this moment. It's cool, like with a layered with this frog thing in the beginning. Let's have a look. You can do those samples like by yourself. You have a microphone or anything, just record a bunch of different sounds and stack them on each other, and yeah, you will get pretty cool results. Also cool, very stereo, nice, just a real clap here, but not what we're searching for. Okay, so now we're getting into the realms of what we want. Something that is just a little bit more like punchy and white noisy and more classy. It's also like, it shouldn't be too aggressive though. Yeah. This would be too distorted. Yeah, this could work out. It's kind of like a snap clap mixture. So let's go into our clap channel. Let's double click here to insert this clap. Let's go to one-shot mode and let's create a new MIDI channel. And here as well, let's go to our triplet grid. It's not making any difference here at the moment, but I just want you to, if you're working in triplets, always go into your triplet grid. Otherwise you will forget it. And if you're mixing up like triplets with straight rhythm notes, it will not sound good. Okay. So the clap position is always on the 2 and the 4 of your bar. So and if you're 1, you're 1.2, you're 1.3, you're 1.4. So your clap is always here on the 1.2 and the 1.4. Okay, so now we can just loop this and it will sound alright. It's too loud now. Okay, let's just play around a little bit with the beginning marker here. I think it's better if it's a little bit shorter, a little bit tighter. And we can increase the volume again a little bit. Alright, so this sounds pretty good now. Now let's try to send this to our Wide and Dirty turn as well. And also here, I mean, the clap sounded pretty good already, but if we send it there, just getting a little bit wider. Let's bypass this for sure for a short moment. Cool, so I would suggest, like I would do a little bit more of send here than with our hi-hat. We had like minus 13 dB, the original signal getting sent to the Wide and Dirty preset here, and now we have like minus 6 dB, around minus 6 dB. Cool, so let's have a listen again. Cool, so what you can do like with clap rhythms, this is not something in particular that Ben did in his track, but you can program like small fills in the end of 2 or 4 or 8 bars. This is totally up to you how much fill information you want. So in this case I will do it in the end of our 4-bar loop here. So let's just click on this whole MIDI clip and let's just hit Command and J to consolidate it, and now we just increase the length of this MIDI clip. So With fills, you just hit like a 16th position in the end of your last bar, and this will evoke like a feeling of a drummer making a fill. And this can be pretty cool because it just adds a little bit of information and interest to your drum groove. So I will just pick those like 2 16th positions here. And why am I picking those? I'm picking the second one here and the 4th one here. Like if you count from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, because I want to have different positions. I don't want to like do the same position here as I do here in this bar, okay? So let's just drag down the volume a little bit by adjusting this velocity slider down there. Now let's have a listen. Now we can just duplicate this here. Okay, and I did wrong what I promised to do all the time. We're still in our 16th grid and we're not in our triplet grid. So let's enable triplet grid again and go to our 16th bar triplet grid here. And now we can start adding in some fill notes. I'm sorry, but that's because that's why it wasn't grooving at the moment. Okay, maybe we should switch over to 8th notes here. Yeah, that sounds good. So let's adjust the velocity. Let's do one more note here and make it very quiet. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I think with 16th triplet notes, it will instantly sound a little bit like it will sound super fast and super trappy if you use it. That's why I switched back to the 8th triplet note rhythm right here. Cool. The last one can be a little bit louder. And I mean, you can, like a basic principle of producing music is layering, and I mean, if you like the clap how it is, that's totally fine, but we can just start duplicating the channel and call this clap layer. And actually what I like to do is I like to go to like drums and then just insert a drum rack here, just replace the old clap, this doesn't really matter. And now we'll just go into our sample pack again, and now let's just pick like 20 or 30 claps, take them all and insert them here in your drum rack, okay? So what we can do now is we have all those claps here, and now we can layer super easily, and now you can give your clap a little bit more individual spice, because it's not just one clap that you picked and then you just put it in and then you're like, yeah, okay, this is it. All right, so let's have a listen to how it sounds like if I just pick those MIDI notes we have up here and I put them on a position of, for example, something more a little bit organic, okay? Without, and we don't even have to, you don't even have to layer each clap with this. You can go and say, okay, I just want to layer every second clap, and then we want to layer those fills here in the end as well. And now maybe we want to, like layer the first one as well, so it's not like that soft in comparison to the second one. Let's choose this one, just duplicate this over. And then let's just decrease this clap layer volume a little bit. And now we can go inside of our individual drum samples here. You can see which ones are playing by this like yellow highlights here. And then we can choose in the control section here for the sample, we can just span it to a certain side. And this is cool because now we have small accents on our clap that are being layered on both sides in the end. So I will do this with every one of our claps. And of course, you have endless possibilities. You can go on with this layering for 10 hours, okay? And you can layer percussions on top of it. You can layer Foley sounds on top of it to make it just a little bit more organic. So feel free to experiment here and find your own style. You can even start dialing in some ghost notes. Adjusting the velocity a little bit. And ghost notes, they make sense if they're like together with the clap position here, Like this is making sense because it's very like near to this clap position here. Wouldn't make sense so much here. Just drag them over there and let's just try a little bit. Yeah, it's cool. Let's decrease the overall volume a little bit more. Alright, so for this first example, I think the last thing missing is a hi-hat, like an offbeat hi-hat, classy offbeat hi-hat. So let's go and create a new MIDI track. Call this hat. Now we will just insert a new MIDI clip here. Right click, go to triplet grid. This is a little bit annoying. I would suggest I think you can change it in the preferences that if you're making a lot of music in triplets, you don't have to click there every time. You can just choose per default that it's making you a triplet MIDI clip. But for this sake, it's okay. All right, so off hat. In the example of Ben, he had like this very like groovy, a little bit like something between a shaker and a hat, off hat. So we're trying to recreate something like that. So let's go to our hat section here and maybe we will, directly layer something. So let's just go to our instrument section first and choose drum rack by double clicking on it. And now let's go back to our sample pack. Okay, so now I'm searching for something in between, as I said, a shaker and a closed hi-hat, or maybe something a little bit longer than a closed hi-hat. So not too short, not like the one we've already have in our track, but yeah, a little bit longer. Okay, so we can use a lot of them, we have a lot of space. This one is good, a little bit aggressive though. Too trappy, too drum machine-ish, too short, too techy. Yeah, maybe we can make something out of this one. It has a nice white noisy feel to it. This one is also pretty cool. Okay, let's continue. Okay, those are too organic. Maybe this one is a good layer. Too short. They're cool, but too organic. They're too techy. Okay, let's go to the shaker section real quick. This one is good. Like those ones, they are too undefined in their volume shape, But this has a really nice like volume bump in it. That's why I picked it. Alright, so let's go into the MIDI clip. And now we'll just hit this like second eighth, triplet eighth note position here. And let's duplicate this over and then we can loop it here. Cool, so I think I will go with this shaker sound here. Okay, so now we've placed our off hat here. The thing is, you can see that this sample here, it has like the starting time here, okay? So and it's around 60 milliseconds until like the highest point gets reached. Yeah, and that's something that will sound not that good. Have a listen. It's not really grooving, it's like coming it's coming just too late. So either we're going to cut here, or, which I like more, is we're going into our MIDI section here, into a MIDI clip with our MIDI notes, and then just drag those to the left. Okay, because now we don't get rid of this nice information here. That's our upsweep, so to say. Okay, so now let's have a listen, and we can do this live so you can get a feeling on how much you have to drag it to the left until it's working. Too much? Yeah, I think that's good. You know, now it's not grooving anymore. And cool. Now we can try if you want to layer it. I don't think so. Maybe we can just start by varying the velocity a little bit. Add some more, like fill in ghost notes, always watching that you're just dragging it a little bit to the left from the point of the grid. Let's just also increase the send here a little bit. So this is our wide and dirty solo. So let's go and mix this in. There will be a time where you're listening to when it's just feeling right. Too loud. Around 12 and until like 9, I think it's pretty cool. So let's just pan this a little bit to the left, so we just make a little bit more of a stereo feeling right there. Okay, cool. So I think we've got our like first basic drums here. I just want to add some reverb real quick, and then we'll continue with the second example. Alright, so for adding reverb, we just head over to our first send A, and with drums you want to make like more like a drum room. So I think it makes no sense to have the reverb time that's over a second actually, because it will muddy up your sound like crazy, because all the elements are getting reverberized. So let's just solo the drums, and then I will show you what I mean. Okay, we don't need the kick in here. So let's send this to our reverb. So in our reverb we have like different settings. The most important one is like this decay time here. It's still working actually, but now it's getting stupid. This is just, you would do this like in a break. You would automate it like this, and then there would be the drop. Okay, but with 200 milliseconds we cannot hear it. Now I'm starting to hear it. And now it's up to your taste. But also the groove is being affected by this reverb decay time, okay? That's something you can watch out for. I would go between like 400 and 600 for this. Of course, this is way too much. Yeah, like -10, I think it's cool. It's just adding a little bit of like more quality to the drums. Alright, so this This could be like our first like groove that we've created with our drums. I'm not mixing those drums now like super crazy, because I really want to focus on sample picking and on groove production. Okay, so we've got our first example. Alright, so I would like to go into our Tim Green Tears example now. And as I said earlier, we are going to move into the direction of more like organic melodic house drums here. So a little bit more shaker style, a little bit more groovy, maybe some toms and all that stuff. So not that simple as we just made it. But let's have a listen to the instrumental again. Okay, cool. So this is our instrumental, actually pretty basic. So we have just our bass and our wavetable main melody. This is actually the melody that I created for this track. So this is not the melody that is in the track of Tim Green. So don't get too upset if you're rechecking this. All right, so let's just create a couple of MIDI channels here. Let's call this first one kick, the second one clap, the third one head. So we're searching for kind of a similar kick as we did with Ben's track, but maybe a little bit more punchier. So let's create a MIDI track by hitting Shift Command and M. Just loop this first quarter here, and so this is the fastest way to insert your kicks. And we don't have to be focusing on this triplet grid anymore, so we can just create a MIDI clip and it will be all fine. Cool, so let's go to our kick section, and now let's just, let's just insert a kick here, go to one-shot mode, and let's just have a listen in context with the rest. Okay, let's go here and let's switch between some samples. This could work out here, it's a little bit tighter. Also not bad. I'll just close down this filter envelope here of our main melody a little bit. This one is working as well. This one is too aggressive. Also beautiful. Just too distorted. Weird tone in it. This is also too tech housey. So I think like the first ones, they work out pretty well, like all of them. Maybe we go with this one here. Alright, so I just wanted to pop out a little bit more, so let's go to our audio effects and insert a drum bass here. Okay, so it's by default like adding drive, and because it's adding drive, it's also adding volume to your kick. So this is something I don't like actually. If software producers, programmers, they program their software like that, but let's just drag down the volume here a little bit because it's distracting you from the actual effect it's making, But it's also adding some crunch and some distortion. Alright, cool. So I think this is pretty nice with the kick here. So I think we can continue by adding some shakers here, and I will show you a little trick. So let's create an audio channel, and now we can go into my sample pack. It's called Organica 2, and I also made Organica 1. But let's go for the 2, and now I have here like this real shaker loops, which are just professionally recorded shaker loops, and I have like short shaker loops that are a little bit like tighter. That's why I made the separation there. So we'll just play back the track here and have a listen which one sounds good to us. Let's decrease the monitor volume here a little bit on the top and on the down right corner. So then we could, you know, you can pre-listen your elements already a little bit mixed. Sounds good. This is too like, this is a little bit too Afro-ish. I think the first ones were cool. You know, with an accent on the offbeat. Okay, so let's go with this one. Let's just insert it. Let's drag down the volume. And what you can do now is you go into this audio clip, and first you have to duplicate it. Then you go into your audio clip, and now you just take the starting point here and you put it to another quarter note starting position here. Okay, so either here 1.2, 1.3, or 1.4. And because this is like a real recorded shaker, like every hit, you can even see it visually, is a little bit different. And because we have like this different hits here, we can, you know, now we have two shaker loops going on, and if we pan one to the left and one to the right, now it will make a really nice stereo feel, because if we had it on like the same starting position, it would sound just mono. You know? That's just for our background vibe here. We can group those and call them shaker loop. And we can even send those to our White and Dirty preset here. Not too much. And what I like to do, what can add a little bit of groove, is if you insert a compressor here and sidechain those shaker loops to your kick. Alright, the settings are fine here. So this is totally up to you how pumpy you want to have it. Cool, so let's go and add a head here. Maybe we can insert a drum rack at this time, and then we'll just layer something together. So as I said, this will be a little bit more like organic, melodic, housey drums. So let's use my sample pack as well for this one. Let's go to the one-shot section here. And for the hi-hat, crash and shakers. Okay, so I will just pick like randomly 10 out of those. Or 20, I don't know. And now we'll create a MIDI clip here by hitting Shift Command and M. Let's drag this out. And let's just put our first basic rhythm, not considering the sound at the moment. Now we can switch through all the different hi-hats, and we'll just have a listen for what feels really good. This has a nice drag, even though I don't like this shaker tail on the left side. Also pretty cool. This is nice. This is pretty nice. So let's try to add some ghost notes by emphasizing the second and the fourth 16th note of every quarter. Maybe you should like use more like shorter sounds there, okay? Let's just play with the velocity a little bit. And now we can layer like one hi-hat, which will be a little bit softer, and then one will be layered with another hi-hat, and that will like, because it's layered, it will get louder, and therefore it will like emphasize this off-hat position a little bit more, and this will create just a little bit more interest. So we can layer the first one as well with another sound. So this is cool because this is adding like a transient. And those are just, they're like so long, I don't know if they're like more like, I don't know, they're like they're fucking up our groove a little bit more than they're doing anything positive. So much. Okay, so this is it for our like basic head pattern right there. And I don't want to add like any bongo or conga loops here because we really want to stay in our like more melodic house vibe here. So let's go and add a clap. I want something between like organic and punchiness. So we will use some more punchy clap samples, and then we will also use some more like organic drum samples. So for the organic ones, I will choose some of my sample pack, but before we do that, let's just insert a new drum rack real quick. So I have this very groovy and very like organic clap layers here, and if we combine them with like the other sample packs, for example with the Deep Premium, let's just use random ones. I really like to work this way, it's super nice, you can get the results very fast. Okay, so standard clap position. Let's just scroll through the different claps. This is cool. I don't like the tail, like those two here. I'll just use the first one. Very tight. You can play with the starting point. This would be too aggressive. Maybe we can just lower the volume. Yeah, why not? Okay, so this clap here, the ones I made, they have this like this fade in moment. You know? And this is actually pretty cool, so don't be surprised when you're buying my sample pack because it's all on purpose. What we have to do is we just have to drag the MIDI note a little bit to the left to use it properly. No, it's like, that's like opening up. It's like kind of like a reverse clap, you know? So now we can just add some basic 16th ghost notes here. Ghost notes also means that they are pretty quiet, okay? Those are not working out here. So I'm searching for something for our ghost clap notes that is a little bit tighter, so nothing with a big, like huge beginning. Yo. And we can add like, you know, like some fill-in notes in the end. Just go on 1/16th note here. Maybe you can layer this. No, not with such an aggressive one. Yo, and let's do them a little bit quieter. Cool, so this could be like our basic clap pattern right here. So let's continue with the next example, Solanka from Afar, and let's have a listen to the instrumental one more time. Alright, so those are all like the ideas I came up with in the style of those tracks, okay? So if you're if you're listening to them and referencing them, they can sound a lot different. Cool, so for this one, I would say we will make this like a little bit more groovy, more chunky style. Let's continue with this Solanka from Afar example, and we want to create some like more crunchy drums now, and really upfrontish, and also a little bit of chunky drums. So what I mean with crunchy I mean just snappy, upfront, loudly mixed, not very like soft mixed, also like punchier drum and sample picking. And with chunky I mean we will drag manually like our hi-hat position, and then we make it a little bit more groovy like. So I'm really looking forward for this example. So let's start with our kick again and create a MIDI channel here. Let's call this kick, and now we'll go to our sample packs again, PML packs. Cool, so let's look for the one-shot section here with our kicks. Perfect. So now I'm looking for something that's a little bit more aggressive. So I'll just insert this one, and then we'll create a MIDI clip, and then we'll listen to it just on this very basic kick position here, looping it, dragging the loop out. So we have our kick everywhere. Okay, let's make it louder. Let's go to one-shot mode here. And now let's just switch through some kicks. I'll just close down this melody envelope a little bit, so we're not getting too distracted. This would be super techno-ish, it's not what we're searching for. Too much high-end. This could work out pretty well. This is pretty cool. 22 is good. Could also work, a little bit of a crazy attack right there. Too tonal. Too pitch droppy. Don't like the percussion layered on it. Just techno. Nope. No punch. Okay, 22 is pretty good. So this is how I like to go, like, you know, let's just reduce it for 1 dB. So this is how I like to go through my sample picking process, you know. So this is like kind of how you also find out what kind of kicks you like on your own, because that's the most important thing in the end, that you pick a kick that you like. So if you're like making a track and a kick is working, I would recommend go with that kick. I have some kicks that I know that always work with me, with my live set on PAs and all that stuff. So yeah, this is something that is working out pretty well. So let's create a snappy clap, and we're going to be pretty basic on this one, but still pretty chunky and pretty nice. So let's create a MIDI clip here by hitting Shift Command and M and just dial in this basic clap position. I mean, you can, you know, like this is always the same in our electronic music. If you're making like this more standard melodic house music, of course there are artists that are not using claps anymore, or they're doing like crazy polyrhythmic stuff and all that thing. I know that, but you can create just a template, you know. I did this, so there's always, this MIDI clip is always made because you don't have to do it every time, you know, it's just a little bit senseless. Alright, so let's go to our clap section, our deep Premium Volume 6 pack here. Okay, cool. So let's go to our clap section here. And now I want something that's really snappy, so we don't need any organic stuff here. Yeah, why not? Let's just try a little bit. Let's just scroll through our claps here. I like this one. You can shorten it up a little bit. Decrease the volume. And maybe we're gonna layer this one with a snap. So let's duplicate this channel and call this one snap. And then we're going to just search for snap here. So there are a couple of sample packs which got snaps in them. Let's go to this one here. Yeah. I don't know if I'd like to. I want something a little bit more punchy. Nope. Let's just try this. From my friend Felix. There we go. Thanks, bro. So we have to increase the volume here quite a bit so it sticks out because the clap is very aggressive. We can also pan it. And I would layer it with another one. And let's put this here to one-shot mode. Sorry. Okay, same approach here. You just go inside the clip because now the snap is delayed later than the clap position itself. So you just pick the notes and then you drag them to the left. Let's put this to the right. Cool, so now we have like our clap snap group here. And now let's create another MIDI channel and call this hi-hat. And now we're going to create like this chunky hi-hat I was talking about. So let's go to our head section here. And you can like pre-listen with this right key here. And then you can already, jam around with those elements if you don't want to put them in and with the MIDI keyboard and all that stuff. So just searching for something punchy, more like 909-ish here. 909 is like the drum machine from Roland. Yeah, maybe something like this. Let's try it. So let's create a MIDI channel here, drag it, and now let's just put our head on the basic off-head position. One-shot mode on, a little bit quieter. This would be too quiet for this kind of style that we want to create. Yeah, this is good. Okay, so what you can do now, you can open up your hi-hat pattern, piano roll, and now we will just try to like pick the single notes here and just drag them a little bit to the left and to the right to make it more groovy. And what we want to add as well is another note here, and then we just like on the 16th note, so kind of like the ghost notes we added earlier on, but this time at the same velocity. Sorry. Yup. So now they're playing together pretty well here. And we just decrease the volume here a little bit. Cool, let's increase the volume here a little bit. Let's just group this real quick and call this drums. Let's just group those two real quick and call them hi drums. And what I told you earlier on was that a lot of times in melodic house there's not like a 16th shaker pattern going on, but a 16th hi-hat that is playing all of the time. I mean, we had like this triplet grid hi-hat earlier on with our Ben Böhmer example, but I would suggest you to try out those 16th note hi-hat patterns. So let's create a new MIDI channel. Let's call this 16th hat and create a MIDI clip. You can also drag this MIDI clip down here. This is just however you want to do it. So we're still in our 16th grid, that's perfect. Oops. So we can hit B to access this pen here, and then we can just draw in our MIDI notes. Alright, so hit B again to get out of this mode, and now we can loop this. And now we will just search for something like between a hi-hat and a shaker to fill up the space in between a little bit more. And if you're like adding 16th notes to your drum grooves, they bring in tempo, okay? So this is the same thing as if you're listening to like a halftime track or something that's really slow, you know, like it doesn't necessarily have to be the tempo that is slow, you know, you can play very, very slow in 122 BPM. But if you're just placing the notes on every like second bar, it will feel very, very slow. So if you want to add more tempo to your tracks, go with 16th note, not only on the drum level. Those hi-hats are actually pretty cool here. Maybe we can try them later on. So I'll just try it a little bit. Okay, now we will have to see that we're like adjusting this groove also to our 16th hi-hat pattern here. And that's actually no problem because we can just right click here on this MIDI clip and then we can say extract grooves. And now we have our own groove that we made. We have it here, and then we can go into our hi-hat pattern to the groove section on the left side here. And now we can just put on our groove that we've just created by ourselves. Now it's adjusted with the hi-hat loop and it's not playing against each other. Cool, so let's go down to this drop-down menu here and choose the sample switch mode or hot swap mode called an Ableton. So now we can swap through all of our hi-hats and see if another hi-hat is sounding just a little bit better and fitting into our track more. This is way too long. Nope. Nope. Yeah, maybe we can shorten it up a little bit. So let's go to one-shot mode again. Let's fade it out, make it more smooth. Let's drag down the volume of the 16th hat here. Let's go to our clap snap here and let's insert an EQ. There's some like mid-range information that I think is a little bit annoying. Let's search for it. Yeah, here. This sound like it comes from the snap and I don't like this area here. And we can also cut the lows here, we don't need them. Alright, pretty cool. So let's just deactivate our melody and our bassline real quick and just have a listen to our drums and play with the New York compression and with our wide and dirty and with our reverb again. So let's increase the send to our reverb. Way too much. Maybe we just, we should just do this with our high drums and not with our kick drum. Yeah, just like around -19 works out here pretty well. Let's see what we have with the other ones. We had sends, like we had -16. Yeah, it's kind of the same everywhere. So let's send our high drums to the Wild and Dirty preset as well. Cool, okay. So let's send our high drums from our latest drum groove to the New York compression again. Okay, so now they're like the 16th notes, they're really popping out. Depends on, like, this is totally up to your taste how much you dial in there. So let's just deactivate all those sends for a quick moment and have a listen to the difference. Just a little bit fatter like that. Alright, so as a last step of this drum groove, this more chunky drum groove, I would like to add a fill at the end of the whole 4 bars here, and I would like to go with a snare right there. Because why a snare? I think a snare is like one of the most classy like drum instrument, and everyone knows it, so it works pretty good as a filler in the end. So let's create a new MIDI track here, call this fill snare, and let's create a new MIDI clip. And now we will just search for a snare, close down the groove pool here, go to our PML packs, one-shot snares, cool. So now I'm searching for something that is pretty short and tight. Yeah, that sounds good. So maybe we just try to go with this one first. So let's go and put our snare to one-shot mode here. So let's apply our groove as well. So, I mean, we can just, try to... You just try to make fills always in the end of your bar, Too many notes here. Too often the same velocity. This is important that you play with the velocity. Yeah. Let's duplicate this and then we can alternate the notes. Maybe like this. And then let's alternate the velocity here a little bit. I think we should alternate the velocity a little bit more, otherwise they sound so similar. Alright, so this could be like one example for a snare fill rhythm. So let's try to play a little bit with the samples right here. Also not bad. So this is not working at all. Too acoustic, I think. No, it's a little bit too distorted. I think we were good with where we were. Oh, this is also not bad. Can play with the transpose knob here a little bit to adjust it to the right pitch. Maybe we will shorten it up just a little bit. No, not too much, otherwise it will sound a little bit mechanical. Yeah, and just decrease the volume a little bit more. Alright, so I hope I could give you a little impression on how you can, exact your own groove out of your drums and just pull them a little bit to the right so they get like a little bit like a off feeling actually, but that makes it very, very chunky and very groovy. And I think I've listened to this kind of drums a lot in melodic house lately, especially by like bigger artists that are like more independent artists, not even like scene artists like from melodic house scene, but very independent artists. Just the name of this one guy is not popping up in my mind at this moment. Just have fun experimenting, and I think you don't even have to do as much EQing and all that stuff, if you pick the right sounds and if you set them to a proper level. Without further talking about this, let's continue with our last one. And here I want to go into a more percussive direction, and I also want to add an ambience there, which can help gluing together our drums. And I think in the end of this section, you will have a pretty good impression on how you can, achieve. You have some little tricks that you can use all along the way, which will bring you pretty far. Okay, so let's have a listen to our last instrumental one more time. So this was like the instrumental I created in the style of Solanka of his track Great Belt. It's not exactly the same, but it's in the style. Let's just close down this filter frequency amount here of the main melody so we're not distracted. Alright, so let's just create a MIDI clip here, and we will start with a kick again with our Deep Premium Volume 6 sample pack. I think the kicks there inside there, they're working with a lot of tracks, especially those kicks from the Stereo Voltage guys. They did a great work here. So let's just pick a random one, put it on one-shot mode and see how it's working. And now we can switch through them. This is kind of too short, or no, it's too short. This could work out. Too aggressive. This one is again pretty cool, like 12, I like the 12, the kick number 12 here. Too aggressive, 13 is too aggressive. A little bit too clicky. This is pretty clean, but very short. This one is very clean actually, so maybe we will just stick with this kick here. So let's call this one kick. Increase the volume a little bit. And let's just decrease the volume of our bass line just a little bit, and I will add the sidechain to this kick. It was set to a different one before. Okay, cool. So I told you about like adding an ambience into your tracks, and I think this can create like a kind of a nice glue, so all those elements are just like are happening like on a ground, like on a field somehow. So this is like if you think of pictures, it would be the same if you add like texture to an artwork or something like that. So let's create an audio channel by hitting Command and T, Command R, rename it, and let's call this ambience. So I've recorded some ambiences when I was producing my Organica sample pack. So let's check that out. Maybe they're fitting our needs. So what you are searching for here is you can choose whatever you want. If you want to have like a more rainy mood, you just go. Maybe with your recorder, you go outside and you create some rain or some street atmo, or in my case, I was in the woods with like birds and all that stuff. And a friend of mine, she sent me a voice message a couple of days ago with she's in Bali at the moment, and there are beautiful birds singing there. So waves. You can use whatever you want just to give your track a little bit more interest. Okay, so there's this folder ambience and Foley. There are not that many inside here, but still a couple of that we can work with. So let's play back our basic track now and the ambience. I think we're going with this one. Insert it here, just cut the beginning a little bit. And now it's way too loud. We just really want this in the background. Let's drag down the volume. So maybe we'll just pick a part where this bird is not singing too much. And let's add an EQ to get rid of some of the low frequencies here, because they're in there a lot. I just... Ew, that's cool. And we can add a compressor here as well. That is getting sidechained to our kick. It's this kick, I guess. Yep. So let's increase the volume just a little bit. Okay, so as I said, I want to be a little bit more percussive on this one, so we'll just add a MIDI clip and start with a more percussive style of drum loop now. For this, I would suggest to use a drum rack again, so we can like mix up toms and percussions and all that stuff, and then we can, yeah, maybe layer them early on and get a pretty cool groove out of them. So let's call this perc rack and insert a drum rack here by double clicking on this instrument. And now we're just going to our PML packs again, and let's see what we have here. We have some toms here. I don't like those actually, so let's go to my sample pack and pick the toms that I've made here. You know, they're just a little bit more tonal, and I think this is the kind of tom we need for this style of production. I also made tons of perc one-shots. Let's just pick a couple of those. And then we'll just switch through some sample packs and to get different kind of percussions, percs here. Okay. Cool. Some djembe, but it doesn't sound too much like a djembe, so it's okay. This is pretty cool actually. Very low, very tight, very like stereo, very high quality. Like those, it's just, for me it's too techno-ish and too not unpercussive actually. So maybe just some bongos here. This one is pretty cool. Very knocky, very woody. This could work out like kind of like a clave substitution. Yeah, this could be like a clap layer or something. Let's just check out the snares real quick. They're all too aggressive. Okay, so let's just pick some random ones here out of the sample pack, and I think we're good to go. So let's create a MIDI track here. I think if you're like making a groove, you want to have variation, you know, but you don't wanna have too much randomness in it, you know, because if there's like different percussions all over the place, it will sound just super wild and super like, okay, this person hadn't had an idea really, okay? So I would just, you know, go and like create a basic like rhythm, and we can use like the technique from Sébastien Léger, where he's this great online tutorial, and he's just, you know, like putting in notes, and then he's just like randomly blindly deleting some of those, and that's how he comes up with rhythm sometimes. And this is I think this is a super like easy and creative approach, because sometimes we are so stuck in our writer's block that we don't know how to come up with a groove and what is a nice groove, and oh fuck. So sometimes it's easier to delete notes than to add notes. So for example, we could just have a listen to this. Okay, and then what you're watching out for is just your gut feeling, which will tell you, okay, here's a note too much or here's a note too less. So I think there it was. So here we have too much notes here for this tom. So we can just duplicate this over. Let's just play with the tuning real quick. So you can see that here in very small in the left corner, you can see that you will watch out for this yellow light, and then you can just click on your sample, and now you can transpose it really easily. This is the right pitch here. If you don't hear this, you just go to your audio effects, you insert a tuner, and if it's a good tom, a good tonal tom, it should be displayed here in the tuner. Otherwise it can get a little bit hard to for the program to detect the tune of the tom. But then you can also use, if you have like the FabFilter Pro Q, it has like this implemented keyboard on the downside of the GUI. And then there, where you have like this direct representation of like the band and the keyboard, and this is how you can also find out, you know. So I'm just gonna do this real quick because I think some of you may have this Pro Q. Let's just insert this real quick. Cool. So you can see here. Oh, let's just make this. Okay, perfect. So if we just play this here, you know, you see this bump here. So this is like the tonal center, and now you can just see that this is like an A sharp here, and we can also see that it's an A sharp here. So this works as well if the tuner is not working, you know. So we could even go to controls, and now we have the possibility to fine tune our tom here. So let's just detune it down, and now we can see it's getting more in the green area right here. Okay, so now let's just delete this. Alright, so now we've made up like one like very basic rhythm with our tom, and we can even like go in and just change the velocity of some of those notes just slightly, you know, because this is something people are very aware of without knowing they are. The listener, he or she will hear that. So let's just add, I'm just doing this randomly here. It just adds a little bit of variation. And we can directly send this into our White and Dirty preset right here. Not too much. And another cool little trick that I can show you is there's this effect called beat repeat. So we have our tom here, which is this one. So now we just want to drag this beat repeat like behind, like in here, okay? Not behind the whole track, but just behind this one sound. And what this beat repeat is doing, it's just if there's something coming in, it will repeat it in a certain way. And this certain way, we can dial that in. And the first thing you want to do is you want to just play with the interval until you hear that it's repeating your note, because this is like the interval is this like kind of how you catch your tone, you know, your sample. Okay, cool. So now the interval is set to an 8th note, so it's taking 8th notes and then it's repeating it in the grid of like a 32 time division. So this is actually pretty cool, you know, you've already heard it's like dun, 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 and now it's doing it not randomly, but if we put down the chance here, it will do it kind of randomly, and it's just adding a little bit of interest to your tom groove. There it was. And now we can just drag down the volume here a little bit, so it's not like the repeated section is not too loud. There we go. And then I would suggest to hit no triplets here, because as I told you earlier, triplets and straight notes, you cannot mix them up together. And then we can just increase the variation here, and this will create just different patterns. Let's just drag down the volume a little bit more. and decrease the chance a little bit so we don't have so much repeats all the time. Let's just increase the volume a little bit. Alright, so let's go with another perk. You know, now you could start randomly, super randomly stuff, but I think it's not that good if you do so many randoms, like percussions, because it will sound random. You know, if we just put something here, and then maybe there, and then maybe here, and maybe here. No, it would just sound a little bit all over the place. So what I suggest you to do is to just have a look at the pattern we just created, kind of randomly, and then thinned it out, and then layer some of those elements. And we could, for example, layer those first 2 hits every time they're hitting in each new bar. Okay, so could, like, this was just like a random sample here. We didn't make like a completely new groove, which is then kind of complicated to understand sometimes for the listener. And of course we can, you know, just watch this position here and layer it with one more sound. You know, every time it hits again, every new bar. And of course we can use those sounds here to just make a nice small interplay between like this note and this note here. So this would be like a fill note for this note. And it's still layered with another note down here. Could layer this one here. It's also possible. So I'm just trying to focus to layer on top of the rhythm of the tom which we created. Okay, so let's just go on and add maybe we can layer this sound here a little bit. You're watching out that you're laying it not with a kind of a similar sound, okay? So not another tom, because they would clash in pitch. Yeah, this can work. You don't have to do it every time. And maybe we can just like take one of those towers here if you want, and we will create like a fill in the end of our whole 4-bar loop here by just, as I said, dragging it on a 16th position here. So let's send this whole thing to our New York compression. And to our reverb. Not too much. And we can also add a compressor here, just to tame some of those high peaks here. Let's go to peak mode. You know, there's some peaks that are very like popping out, and I think this is something we like at the end. If you're giving to a mastering engineer, the hell for a mastering engineer is if he gets like a pretty good mix down where everything is leveled properly, and then there's like this peaks coming out from your percussion. So this is why I just want to tame it here for a couple of dB. So let's just mute our main melody here for a second so we can concentrate more on our percussion. Yeah, sometimes like the speed repeat, it's like making a little bit crazy stuff. Maybe we can decrease the volume a little bit more. Yeah, it sounds pretty cool actually. Very like flowy. And it's like kind of on purpose, you know. It's not that you think, okay, like this percussion is all over the place. Okay, so let's create another MIDI channel, and let's call this head. So now we'll just add our basic instruments back again. And let's go to our PML packs. Maybe we go with mine. Can do whatever you want here. This sounds pretty cool. So let's just double click here, create a new MIDI track. And then we can just loop this section here. And let's also send our head to our wide and dirty preset. Not too much. Of course, you know, you can always send like your whole group into the reverb send or your individual elements. Of course, it's also smart to do it with your individual elements, because then you can really like, okay, my hi-hat should be a little bit more reverberized than, for example, my clap or my tom that are all in this drum group. Too much. Just a little bit. Another pretty cool thing that I've discovered all along the way was if you're inserting a shaker loop into a hi-hat pattern. So if we would duplicate this head channel here, and let's call this head shake. And now you're just searching for, I don't know, like in your library, just search for a shaker loop. So we'll just go for shaker and then go into the loop section here. And now we can just like drag a shaker loop into our sampler. And now this shaker loop will always play on our hi-hat position. But because, you know, there's a little bit of information here, it's not that cut off like a normal shaker would be. Like a one-shot shaker, it would be just a shaker. But now we have a little bit more information, and this can make a pretty interesting groove. So let's just switch through some shaker loops in our hi-hat positioned sampler and then see what we can come up with. So let's just increase the length of this MIDI note a little bit. Now you can hear what I'm talking about. This is not increasing the groove actually, so let's take another loop. You know, you have this ghost note here that's getting played as well. Here, this very small one. Pretty cool. I think in general you should watch out that the shaker loops that you are inserting into that sampler, that they shouldn't be like a lot faster or slower than the track you're working in. So I think plus minus 3 dB, plus minus 3 BPM is totally fine, but everything else I think it wouldn't sound that groovy. So we can just duplicate this channel and do it with another one. Okay, not hearing anything. Let's try some different shakers. Tambourine also nice. Yeah, why not? So let's pan this one to the right and this one to the left. Just decrease the volume of this one shaker loop a little bit. Alright, so we can group those ones here and call them high drums. And now we just have to add our basic clap. So let's create a MIDI clip here. Call this clap. Insert a MIDI. And we can loop this one here. Cool, so now let's go into our drums and see under one shots. Let's just type in clap here and it will sort it for us. I think like I would like to go like with a more like real clap here. Let's go to one shot mode. And now we can just switch through those. Sounds super tight, I like that. Great. Could work. You know, this is like, in my world, I wouldn't use a sound like this because for me it's too aggressive. It's not like really interplaying with the other elements nicely. Maybe we could just turn down the volume a little bit for those harder samples. Maybe if we shorten this up, that's better. But let's change it a little further. Okay, so this one we could like, maybe we could use the filter in our clap here, in our sampler. Just shorten it up a little bit. Now let's increase the volume again. And then we can just insert a saturator here. To make it a little bit more snappy. So now it sounds very, very mechanical. That's not what we want. Just want to shape it slightly. Maybe just pitch it a little bit. No. Okay. So this would, you know, those tracks where if it is filtered clap, I think it's also pretty cool. And we can of course just go and layer this one. So let's go into the sample switch mode again. I think it's so cool because it brings you directly back to your sample picking drop-down menu here. So let's deactivate the filter. Maybe we can layer this one with a real clap. Now we can duplicate this one again, pan it to the right, not to the left, and now let's change the sample here. Okay, so this is like how I would go about like creating drums like that, and you don't necessarily have to make a super huge impact, but sometimes small doublings on the side, they will just help you to make you sound more professional. Let's call this hi-hat 16th and we'll add another one of those. So let's go for a hat here and let's see what we have. Just searching for something short and tight, not too tacky. Yeah, maybe this. So now we're adding our 16th heights here. So let's drag this over. Let's decrease the volume right away because I know it will be a background element. Let's create our 16th pattern here. And now we can start alternating the velocity here. And I think it's cool if you emphasize like one of the like 16th syncopated positions here, which are the second and the fourth 16th note in your quarter note. And just duplicate it. Let's go to one-shot mode. And then we can add our pan again, auto pan. And let's decrease the rate so it's not that stressy. And of course, like throughout the track, you know, you can duplicate your head and then you can go for open head. Let's just go for open here. Where are sample packs? Here, perfect. So this one is not the right sample, but let's go to one-shot mode. This is like super tech housey, you know, this is why I wouldn't pick this for melodic house. Maybe something like this would work out. Make it quieter, pan it to the right. And now let's change the sample again. I'm just searching, maybe open head is not right. Let's just search for a head. Something that is a little bit longer than the one we currently have. So in your arrangement, you know, you would like start with a very soft head, off head. So you have the off head position, you have the groove, and then you can add another head later on, and then you can, you know, you don't have to necessarily like make new position grooves, but you can layer your elements to make more impact throughout your track. So you can, yeah, make an impact too if you're arranging more elements in that are layering other elements. This is too trashy. Yeah, not bad. Let's just pitch it a little bit. Let's have a listen without it. This is very short, the one I picked earlier. This is adding a little bit more of groove to the head position. So let's add an EQ here and just get a... This is the perfect setting for this one, so we can just... Yes, get rid of those little bit annoying mid frequencies, and we can boost the high ones here. We could call this like, yeah, more aggressive head layer, even though it's not super aggressive. Alright, so, and we can start adding in our melody again. Okay, so let's have a listen to our drum groove on its own, and I think we're done then. Alright, so I think the last one was one of the coolest ones. Hey people, so I have to crash in again. Unfortunately, my cam died when I was making the conclusion for this whole drum groove part tutorial. So I will just try to repeat this and re-record it. To conclude, first of all, sample picking is the most important process, right? So if you are spending hours or even too many minutes on like EQing certain stuff, and you're hitting delay and putting all that effects on your channel, and you're just not satisfied, maybe that means that you need a different sample, and that's okay. So you will just go and flip the sample once more until you find something that's really fitting your track. The next thing that I want to conclude was this Sébastien Léger method that we've used earlier on, and I think this one can really help you overcome your writer's block, because if you don't know what to do and you're just stuck, it's easier to get rid of notes than to put in notes. So just use that 16th method, put all those notes in, cut some away, and there you go. Maybe you will get very funky and you don't even know how. Alright, so the next thing that comes on top, literally, on sample picking is layering. So if you want to get something that is very groovy, but you don't want it to be like all over the place, use different layers on the same positions, on the same rhythmical positions, and this can really spice up your groove, as well as it makes the sound that you layer much thicker. Another important aspect of the productions we've done here of this melodic house style is that you don't use too much bongo, conga, tablas, instruments in there. because we want to stick to more like simple rhythms, right? But if you want to implement bongos and congas into your production, please feel free and do whatever you want. But like in the examples I analyzed, I didn't hurt them that much. In the end, you can always use FX, for example, New York compression, wide and dirty preset, a little bit of room reverb, even delays and all that stuff, just to give your drums a little bit more living and space. But this is just the topping on top of your nice layered, good picked sample. If you're using triplets, that's pretty cool actually, but then you should stay in your triplet grid with all of your instruments, otherwise the rhythms may clash with each other. Okay, so to wrap things up, I just wanted to thank you for staying here in this course, and this course was really focused just on the sample picking and on the production and groove part. So we didn't talk too much about crazy mixing decisions, because I'm of the opinion that if you pick the right sound from the beginning, you don't have to mix that much. So with that said, I hope you're doing great. I hope you have a little bit more inspiration for your production process, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.